2019, the year that changed my life. It was 2:30 a.m. on a school night, and I was watching a Logan Paul vlog. You may not know who he is, but this is a YouTuber who was doing daily vlogs, basically videoing his whole life and has come up to becoming famous. And I would stay tuned every single day. Now, when I had gotten home from school this day, I had a ton of homework to do. So I sat down, and it was one of those days where I was procrastinating a lot. You know, you sit on your phone, you go back and forth between your phone, homework. So even though I started my homework around like 9 p.m., I was up this late. Completely burnt out. My head felt heavy. My eyes were almost about to close shut, but I didn't want to go to sleep quite yet because now that it took me this long to finish my homework, I wanted to at least end off the night with something that I enjoy because I had school the next morning. Fast forward, I'm in my bed and I turn on this video. And this may have been a mistake, but it may have also been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. As I'm watching this vlog, I felt very inspired because this was one of the videos, I believe, where Logan Paul had a really big accomplishment. I think it may have been when he bought his first house. It was like a mansion, something like that. And as I was watching it, the music behind the video and everything about it made me feel so inspired until it all led up to this one point where he gave a motivational speech to his viewers where he talked about how anything is possible, and when you put your mind to something, you can do it. And it made me feel the complete and utmost excitement, which, like I said, wasn't good for it being pretty much 3 a.m., but we all know about that 3 a.m. motivation. So as soon as the video ended, I take my phone, I go on my notes app, and I start writing down my goals. Mind you, I've never done this before. I've never cared about goals. I've only really cared about playing video games, going to school, talking to girls sometimes if I can. I mean, heck, at this point, I was way too shy to even do that. But this is the first spark, I guess you could say, I've ever felt in my life. It was a spark of something new. So while I'm typing in my notes app, I start writing down goals, and mind you, I put one of the most insane, absurd goals that made no sense in my notes app, and it was that I was going to become famous. A few others included me becoming a millionaire in my 20s and all of this other random stuff, but that night was the night that I had complete, undoubtable confidence in myself, and nothing would break that. Well, that was until it was broken. See, for whatever reason, I chose one of the hardest paths to become famous that you could possibly choose, and that was making music. Now, mind you, all of the most famous people have professional studio setups, producers, all of this other stuff. All I had was my phone, and I don't even know how old I was, young teenager. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was determined to learn it because when I was younger, I always took guitar lessons, so it felt like it was in my blood that I could make music. Soon after that, I decided to take the risk. So I set up my phone, I go in my closet because that was the quietest space, and I just start rapping / singing / doing the most cringy, weird songs. I tell the boy, can't do this on my own. That being said, even though it was cringy, it was still heartfelt because the songs I was writing, I technically wasn't even writing these songs, I was just singing them. They were about actual sad, like traumatic things that had happened in my life. Combine that with a bunch of auto-tune, and it's not the most pleasant experience. After standing in my closet for about 30 minutes, I had my first ever song. This was going to be the one that was going to make me famous. I was going to say goodbye to not having money for my whole life and being a nobody. I was going to make it. So the first thing I do, I post the song on SoundCloud and YouTube. Some of you out there might be able to find them even though I've taken them down. But when I posted it, I sat there and I waited, and I look, and it actually got a decent amount of views. It was like 100 views on YouTube and like 500 plays on SoundCloud. Now, being the young teenager that I was, that was enough for me to continue for however long it took to become famous. After that day, I continued day in and day out to do music every single day. I would make a new song. And this is where it started to go downhill. Once I made my first song, I posted it on my personal Instagram, which, if you're not familiar, Instagram is really the one place, at least it was for me, where when you post something, all of your friends will see it. It's not like something where you're just posting it and it's going out to the internet, a bunch of random people. No, this is going to everyone that you know because we all followed each other. We all went to the same school. That was our way of connecting. So now after posting this music, little did I know, everybody found out about it. And to be honest with you, I was quite proud of myself. I went around the school telling people, yeah, this is me, showing people my song. And in my mind, there was a small amount of embarrassment because I knew it wasn't great, but my close friends gave me encouragement. But now when I showed up to school, people no longer called me Dillon. They called me dillon.latham. They called me a SoundCloud rapper. They called me everything bad that you could associate with an artist. I think SoundCloud rapper is probably the worst thing you could be called. But that didn't stop me at the start. I continued to make this music over and over, day in and day out, until eventually I had a song that went viral on Spotify. At least to me, it was viral. So over the time, I was tired of being called a SoundCloud rapper. So I was like, oh, maybe they'll stop calling me a SoundCloud rapper if I post my music everywhere, which meant YouTube Music, Apple Music, Spotify. So I published my music on every streaming platform. Little did I know this would only make it worse. Now I was just a more known, more cringy SoundCloud rapper because apparently posting on other platforms didn't matter. This continued on and on until one day I show up to school and the kids in the hallway were singing my song at me. Not with me, not just because. They were singing it at me intentionally so that I heard it and I would get embarrassed. Which, I mean, hey, I don't know what I can say. It was my fault for sharing it with pretty much everyone at my school. At first, I shook it off. I ignored the comments that I was getting and the people who were making fun of me. But over time, it built up more and more until eventually the pressure led me to deleting everything. I couldn't handle showing up to school every day and being made fun of for simply expressing myself. And I want to use this term very lightly, but I borderline felt like I was depressed because at this time, at a young teenage years of your life, you don't really have much else outside of your high school life. At least I didn't. So this whole part of my life, which was high school, seemed to have been ruined because even after deleting the music, people still made fun of me for it, still joked about it, and the joking never stopped. All of this built up until I saw there was someone just like me. But he wasn't being fun of for making music. He was being made fun of for making TikToks. And me being the person I was, I'm very empathetic, I decided I'm not going to join in on that. I don't think that makes sense to do. Like, maybe he's just expressing himself. Like, I feel like it would be really cool to be TikTok famous. Then I pulled up his account and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I found myself hating on his videos as well. And as time went on, I kept hating until eventually I started talking to this guy and realized I am just like those people that discourage me from continuing. So from that day forward, I never made a comment in my mind or anything like that. I respected what he did until eventually it led up to the time that he actually quit as well. At this point, I felt that I was in this sort of sheep herd mentality that I'm just going to follow what everyone else is doing. I just want to be normal. That's kind of how I was living. And I remember going to my phone, and like I mentioned earlier, I had these notes of my goals and the things that I wanted to accomplish. One of those notes being, I want to become famous. And when I opened those notes, I was in my room and I started crying. Call me a crybaby, say what you want. But it was an overflow of emotions knowing that I let my younger self down. Mind you, I was still pretty young, but my younger self would be disappointed that I had quit music. I know that for sure. So now moving forward, I decided that I was still not going to let myself down. I never had a goal of becoming a musician. I just had a goal of becoming famous. And I thought, what better way to do it than what my friend was doing, posting on TikTok. So one day, I made a TikTok with my friends, and instantly, just like that, it went viral. And that spark that I mentioned earlier came back, and it ignited a fire. And I really want you to imagine a fire that is so massive that even standing 10 feet away from it makes you hot because it's that big. That was the fire that was lit in my head of how inspired, motivated, and ready I was to take on this opportunity. From this day forward, I started posting more and more and more until this became my new goal. As it continued, it all built up to this one point. I had 400,000 followers on TikTok, and that was when I got banned. It felt like everything had been stripped away from me. All the hard work, effort, everything that I put into social media was taken away. Just like my friend quit, just like I quit before, it felt like I just had to do what everyone else was doing. But I would not let that be an option. So as soon as I got banned, I posted on my Instagram story like, oh guys, please help me, whatever. I didn't get the account back. So I decided I'm going to start from zero. But this time, I'm not posting one time per day. I'm posting 10 times a day, every single day. And I built my following from that point on, gaining 100,000 followers per month. This was the best feeling. My inner kid would have been very proud of this. And looking back at those notes, I always checked them frequently, and it reminded me to keep going. Anytime there was hard times, when I got bad, anything that life threw at me, I was going to push through it. And that is exactly what I did. Now, mind you, as I'm making these new TikToks, I got just as much hate, if not even more, for doing this than I even did the music in the first place. But this time, I used it as fuel to continue. I used it as a way to think, how would these people feel if they saw my life in the next 10 years? And I'm not somebody who likes to gamble, but this was a risk I was willing to take. And trust me when I tell you, it was the most worthwhile risk I've ever taken in my entire life. But life wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I hadn't found a way to make money from social media, and to be completely real with you, I grew up kind of poor. There were times where the power went off in my house. There was no AC. I didn't have the food that I wanted to eat. I had to eat ramen and stuff like that. And to be quite frank, I still didn't enjoy life as much as I wish I could. But either way, I kept pushing. After realizing I can't really make much money on TikTok, I ended up starting a business. This business became one of the top on Amazon. The name is Simpletics, but that's besides the point. We need to look at what really changed my life. And that was getting away from all of the people who were spreading negativity on my dreams, my passions, my hopes, everything that I've ever wanted. Growing up, I always thought I was the weird kid. I thought I was different from everyone else. I thought I was not normal. And to be completely honest with you, I wasn't. But now, as I'm about to hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube, I can tell you that I was not the weird kid. I was the only kid who didn't let his fear stop him from doing what he loved. So now that I'm 20 years old, that notes app list that I made of all of my goals have been complete, except for one. I'm not a millionaire yet. But I can tell you one thing's for sure, I will be in my 20s. And then I can check off the last thing off of my notes app that I made that one night after doing my homework.